30 seconds by thanking the organizers of US Festival. I think it's great to see so many faces here. Great to see new faces as well. And just out of curiosity, how many here in this room is first timers at a festival or a cookout? Raise your hand. Yeah, there's quite much. It's nice to see. It's good to see. And also, I think it's great to know that this time, even though it has been a US festival for quite some years, this is the first time that we are sold with 120 tickets right there. I think that's amazing. Please applaud yourself. So this actually also confirms the trends we see here in the American markets, that we see increased activity of Umbraco in US, and that is great. So just this talk I'm giving today is a business talk. How many here is developers? Yeah. How many is project managers or designers? Quite a few. And who's on the commercial side or from end clients? A couple of 12, yeah. Okay. So this talk, as I mentioned, is a business talk. I'm going to talk about how to grow an agency. I did this talk first time in Code Garden. Code Garden is our World Conference for developers in Umbraco. It was here in May. And Ella, who organized all the speakers, she asked me to come up with that catchy title. So I thought that 10 things to grow your agency would be pretty catchy. Now I realize that it's not all business people here, and my talk is primarily meant for agency owners, for the C-level, for management teams, and even developers that has maybe an idea of being self-employed sometime in the future. But also, if you work at an agency or even at a company, you can use some of these things to understand why things is happening in your organization. Now, I must also admit that I knew there would be a lot of tech people here. I know that you're looking forward to the bits and bytes talk, the very technical talks, the inspiration of either IoT or something of the new technology that shows up. So I actually thought, what if you would think this talk is boring and you start leaving during my talk? So, well, we are all in the digital technology world, and I thought, well, you know, these blog posts, these online medias, that they have these titles that you just have to click. Meaning that if you see a title, he asked her to marry him, and look what happened. And you just can't help yourself by clicking this title. It's called clickbait. And you know when you click this title, this link, and you read the post that it doesn't bring any news to you because she just said yes. So I thought I would use a little clickbait here in my talk to make you stay during this talk. At least you know I have 10 objectives I want to share with you, and at least you stay to see no. So just before I get started, I started in Umbraco HQ back in June 1st, 2016, almost 2.5 years ago. A week after I started, I was experienced my first code-out. 500 people, 500 community people from all over the world I was about to meet. And at the first time when I entered the room with all of these people, I felt a certain vibe in the room. I felt a certain atmosphere. And those of you that has been at Code Garden or other festivals know what I'm talking about, this vibe. I felt it last night again. I feel it in this room by people talking to each other. talk about Umbraco, talk about experiences, but also about all other things that they might not be Umbraco with. This vibe is very, very special in the Umbraco community, and I haven't seen it anywhere before. And before I joined Umbraco, I didn't know anything about it, but this is a special thing, and this is also about being open, being friendly, and the values that that Niels referred to. So this talk, what can you expect from this? Well, it's not a guideline to grow your agency. It's more well, it's a talk that should be inspiring, should be inspiring. You should reflect on some of the things that I'm addressing. Some of the things you might find obvious, but the guy next to you might not. And as I introduce my background on the next slide, you'll probably understand why I have something to say about this. During this talk, I'll start out by giving you a general perspective on how I see the agencies, and then I'll walk you through the 10 different objectives that I will illuminate, I will discuss, and I will conclude. And in some of these objectives, I will also come up with real-life examples from my own life and from experiences with agencies I visited. So, just to tell you a little bit about me, I joined Umbraco HQ 2.5 years ago. I'm cracked in the knot of the Danish military. A lot of the methods, a lot of the attitude I come with is being born in that time. When I was finished doing my service with my military career, I thought I want to get into the IT sector because those guys look cool. And I regret it ever since, but here I am, and I think this position in Umbraco, being part of this we have here, is the most awesome thing I've did since I was in the military. The first couple of jobs I had was actually being a consultancy in the IT sector. I've been installing several Oracle databases. I've been importing data from other sources into databases. I've been doing scripting. I have also in the spare time been working with FrontPage. You remember FrontPage back in the early days? I advanced to Dreamweaver over time, way too at that time. And I also, just to prove myself, I actually did a simple website in purely Notepad. I was pretty cool at that. I would say there's probably a reason why I ended up in sales and marketing or sales and management, but here I am. I think one of the reasons why I brought on board Umbraco is to strengthen the commercial side of Umbraco and to grow our partnerships, partner channels. Before I joined Umbraco, I was in a Danish agency, a large Danish agency, for more than 5 years. When I started in that agency, we were 10 people, and over that time, when I left just before I joined Umbraco, we were 80 people with multiple locations, offshore developers, and etc. And during that time, being the founder and me managing that, I had a lot of challenges growing the business, managing the business, and I would have loved during that time to have other agencies, other network that I could ask how they did things. I did a lot of mistakes during that time. I learned a lot, but we got through. And the time I've been in Umbraco, I've been talking, I've been visiting more than 200 agencies, and I realized that the experiences and challenges I had during my time in an agency is very similar to all others agencies. Now, some of the things that I'm going to talk about here is that I see a certain pattern in growing an agency. I see that there's certain stages that when you grow an agency that you have to go through. Now, my talk here is, it might not fit all agencies, and I must also say that I'm not very familiar with the Eastern agencies, so agencies that are managed in India, Vietnam, or especially China, I don't know much about. But this, my point of view, fits pretty much all in the Western world. So European agencies, US agencies, Australian agencies, they all face the same challenges. Now, maybe not all of them go through these phases, and you would have certain agencies that are popping out, being a medium-sized agency from the start. But if you are growing an agency organically, you might likely see that a developer working at an agency want to do something for themselves. At the minute they actually hire some people in, they are not only a freelancer or a single point contractor, they are an agency. And during these phases, I have discovered that, that there's three different sizes, three different stages that an agency has to go through. So just to keep it very simple, I work with the small agencies, the medium-sized, and the large agencies. If we look at some of the small agencies, then they usually are very technical in size. They might be from 1 to 15 employees. This is just a general perspective. There is agencies that might likely go into phase 2, being a medium-sized, working with those principles in that phase, going already from 8 or 10 people and maturing that way through. But you will also see agencies of a certain size being 20 or 22 that are still acting like a small agency. Very common for these small agencies is that it's the founder that also is the managing director. He takes care of all the management team. He might have one partner along with him managing the agency, and they have a very technical focus in this. Being a developer, that is pretty much what they do. So their process of selling client projects is likely that they do an implementation of something. They might likely also be subcontractors to digital design agencies that deliver work in, and they need, when they've done all the design work, they need someone to implement this. And this is very common for the small agencies that they get work from other agencies. They usually rely very much on one platform, and they rely very much on the benefits, the selling points, the marketing material that come from this platform. So when they go sell, they sell the features of the platform, the CMS. This is highly flexible. This is user-friendly. There is easy APIs, and that's how they do these things. Very common also is that we see the small agencies tend to chase new projects all the time. They are not good at keeping their clients, meaning that when they have implemented a site, they have done work and handed it over, they are on to next project. They don't look at keeping up with the clients. If we carry on and look at the next size, the medium-sized, then it's usually from around 15 to 50 people, employees that these agencies have. Here we're starting to have more mature management teams. Usually you fill in more positions, so it's not only the managing director that do all the things, but there might be just also a technical management person, a commercial management person, maybe a financial, and maybe some human relations as well. we usually see that it's not only the or the technical perspective, but they start looking at the full process of the implementations to client projects. Just to give you an example of, now I'm just going to switch to this slide. Then a very common and typical process of implementing a red project is that you start by having some analysis. It could be all from a phone call or a half a day of workshop where you discover what it is, what is the audience, what are you going to build, and so on. Do some kind of wireframing or prototyping to align what it is that you heard in the analyze phase. You do the design on top of that, and from there you do the implementation, the technical implementation and templating, the development, the integrations, and so forth. And you move on to the education of the end clients, making them take over. Maybe there's also a content phase and so on, the handover in this. And then there is the after, the post projects and the maintenance after. These medium-sized agencies, they start to cover the full circle of services to the end clients. We also see a big change being a mature agency that they don't rely that much on selling the platform. There might even be a selection process of platform as well included in this, which also means that they might not have only one platform. But very common for these agencies, they have both 2 and 3 platforms they can switch from. When I visit some of these agencies, they usually say that they have maybe Sitecore or Adobe to cover the enterprise clients. They might likely have Sitefinity or Kedico to cover the medium-sized projects, and they will have Umbraco to cover the low end of the projects. Now, when I ask these agencies, what kind of projects do you then do with the different platforms? It fits perfectly fine that they do enterprise with the Sitecore, they do some medium-sized with Kedico, but with Umbraco, they must admit they do the full range from enterprise to the low end because it's very easy, it's out of the box, and if it's not a complex where they want, for instance, e-commerce out of the box or the marketing automation suite of Sitecore, then Umbraco is a perfect fit for even the enterprise companies. Very common about these medium-sized is that they are being quite clear. They have worked with their sales strategy. They know how to sell, and they don't sell the features in the platform. They start selling their process. They have listened to so many clients out there that have failed projects, and they are afraid of choosing a new partner because of they're afraid of failure again. So they start convincing about their process is the right. And one of the things in the process is also, for instance, about the CMS selection process. They also start to keep their clients. They work with them for a long time. They keep having maintenance and they keep proposing new things that they can do, and they keep having new projects coming from the same clients. Now, when we look at the big, large agencies, it's typical from 50 employees and up. Very typical for them is that they have professional, very corporate management that might not be in the ownerships, but they are put in the positions because of the skill sets they bring into the agencies. We usually see vertical services, meaning that they don't only do the web projects, but they also do maybe CRM implementations, ERP, they maybe have infrastructure teams working with the whole digital transformation and digital strategies with the companies. They don't sell processes anymore. They sell strategy, they sell digital transformation, and they sell the future and secureness that they are up to date. And usually it's relationships that last for years, these bigger ones. Now this talk today and these objectives that I'm going to run you through Well, mostly be on the small agencies. A lot of the things that I'm saying can be used in the small agencies stage, but there will also be reflection and things that you can take when you're a medium-sized agency. I won't be covering the large agencies because they have most of these objectives under control in the large agencies. Um, This is pretty much a general perspective that I have of the different agencies, and now I'm going to take you through these 10 things that I picked out. Um, these 10 things, I actually, when I got this idea to do this talk about growing an agency, I started making some notes when I came across new things, and I ended up on a list with more than 20 different bullet points. Now, I narrowed it down to about these 10 points, and there's a lot more to be covered in different talks. And there's also some of the things on these bullets we could deep dive into, and I'm not going to deep dive into all of the things, but I'm going to touch upon them. So, bullet number one is when you grow an agency, you want to build the right team. You want to pick the right people. And the smaller an agency, the more important it is that you get the right people in place for your agency. It's pretty obvious. When you are a one-man band and you actually hire in, you double the cost of salary, you accelerate your costs a lot, and this person's impact will also influence a lot on the invoices and revenue that you can create. If you're 10 people, then it only impacts with about 10%. If you're 30 people, it's a lot less, and so forth. So being a small agency, hiring in people is very important. It's also balance, because good people, experienced people, has a higher cost. And you can't, of course, start by hiring top people if you can't afford it. So it's a balance between the salary of the person and the person that actually makes a difference to your organization. A good thing is also to balance the experience you bring in by senior people, and also by having these very young, talented, but unexperienced people in that you can influence on a lot very lower cost. Also, when you are growing an agency and you come from the technical sides, I see a high tendency to hiring people like yourself. So if you're dev, then you hire more devs. It's it's important in the start that you hire people that you can actually get some revenue for. You can invoice their work and so on. But it's very important to look ahead when you grow an agency. When you are 15 people and you start looking at different services also. Maybe you only have devs, front-enders, back-enders, even full stack, yeah, because full stack developers can do all kinds of things today, right? But when is the right time to actually hire in some people that don't make revenue? When is the right time to hire in a CFO or a person dedicated to make sure that you get in the right money? When is the right time to hire in a salesperson other than yourself? Because most likely we see from the small agencies and also to the medium-sized agencies that it's the managing director that is also driving the sales. And it might also be partners when you get up in the medium-sized agencies, but it's usually the management team that drives these things. And you have to balance your cost when you build your team, and you have to look ahead 12 months and see what is the next position that I actually want to have built here in this company. When you hire new people, for instance, if you are to have a new position as you want to sell some search engine automation, an SEO person, then you have to make the mindset of the rest of the staff that now you have this version, you have to sell it to the end clients as well. So it's about building the right team, balance the right people in here. And that said, you don't have to hire in all people. It's important to actually hire external help when it's needed. Sometimes I see attendance from the smaller, especially the smaller agencies, that they can do anything themselves. If we are to implement a new ERP system or something like that, we don't need help from outside. We can do it ourselves, and it's not going to work because it might be in the IT world, but it's totally different than it is to client projects. Also, there is a thing about internal projects when you do things that internal projects you can't handle the same way as you do your client projects. How many here has built their own website and it has taken a lot longer time than it was when you were building a client website? Yeah, there's pretty many hands here. How come can't we handle our own projects like we handle our clients? Is that because we don't do all good enough client projects? No, it's not, because we're growing our business that way. But for some reason, when everybody is doing their internal projects, they have to do the 100%, the 110%, and you're spending way too much time on your internal projects instead of actually buying the help from outside. It could also be something like recruitment. There's a reason why there's so many recruiters out there. And yes, there is bad recruiters as well, but there's also bad agencies. And you have to find the right suppliers on this. But it's okay to hire external help. And well, of course, you have to balance it when you're growing. But external help can be a quite big benefit. Now, next bullet is quite important. I have quite some experience with this one. And software in an agency that are growing is quite important. And when I'm talking about software, I'm not talking about the technical tools that you're developing. I'm talking about all the other tools around. So it could be the ERP system, it could be the project management system, it could be the time management system, it could be the CRM, and so forth. Back in my days at the agency, I had a lot of hats on. I was in charge of all the selling. I was also the acting CFO and in charge of did we actually make money on our projects. So one of the first things that I did was actually to make this after calculation of the projects. So I made all of my colleagues do time registrations on the different projects. We were about 10, and it was very, very simple time registration. We couldn't get reports from that. We grew the company quite fast from 15 to 30 people, and at that time, it was a mess, all kind of things. So I implemented a time registration so we could actually know how much time did we spend on these projects. And at that time, we were selling on fixed prices to the clients, so we had to do the after calculation if we made money on these projects. Quite fast, I found some good software, and we implemented, and I realized quite soon that it didn't work together with our project management software. So we had to create different the projects two places. We had to create the activities registration several places. And the point is that I saw myself changing these systems. In my 5 years in an agency, we changed time registration 4 times. I was totally embarrassed when I introduced the last time registration to the employees because they were confused when I introduced new software all the time. My point is, when you choose software, and you will have to choose software in an agency when you grow it, then do your research. Ask your colleagues, ask in your network, what are you using for this? Why are you doing it? And do your field research, go visit the ones and get some experience on how they are using it. and then pick your choice. Another thing, and this is, I bet you've been there, a lot of you as well. When you are from the technical side and you are developers, then for some reason, developers think, I can build anything. So I can build my own software. How many of you have that sort? Yeah? Quite some. So I can build something that is much better than the ones I can buy out there. And I was in that position as well. Now, here a couple of days ago, I dug into my files and I actually found my very first draft of making the perfect, well, it was called the mastermind. There were some pretty easy screenshots of how we should handle projects, how we should do invoicing, how we should handle the hosting behind it, a one-time entry. And this was horrible. We ended up spending more than 300 hours of starting to develop this, and before I stopped this project, because it didn't go anywhere, and I could see that we could buy quite easily software that might not fit 100%, but we got maybe 90% of the way, and that's okay. And I guess you can see why I'm not a designer as well. But the idea about this was actually that we should have it all in one place and we could do the changes ourselves. But I realized quite fast that 300 hours and we weren't even close of being able to have something operational. I could have spent that hours selling something to other clients, selling more, developing great things that we actually knew how to do. And we could go buy a lot of things for those money we would make through that. So, two things about software in an agency. Do your research and don't build your own. Another thing is when you start an agency, then focus. Focus on what you're good at. The smaller agencies, the newer startups, of course you want to have some work in-house. When you grow agencies and you have a lot of projects out there, you also want to, of course, have new projects in-house, but you need to focus on what you're actually good at. I see too many agencies thinking that they can do anything. We can do both e-commerce, we can do apps, we can do personalization, we can do member sites, we can do all kinds of things. Instead of specializing in a certain sector, focus your business. And I tried it with my own agency. I had my partner at that time, he thought that we could do all kinds of shit. Now, when you are a small agency and when you are growing, and also if you are growing quite fast, then I'm quite sure that many of you has been in the situation of being maybe 2-3 months from bankrupt if you didn't land new projects. So it's important to get new projects in-house. And in that situation, you will tend to actually take whatever opportunity is available out there. And you tend to reinvent new software all the time, but you don't reuse the software that you have. Now, I had several discussions with my partner that he always said, no, we are building for the future. And I felt we were building all the time to the future. And that future never came because we didn't reinvent. We also always invented new software, and we didn't capitalize from that software. And when you start being mature and you go into level 2 of these agencies, it's okay to say no to projects because they don't fit in your agency, in the things that you do. And you have to be aware of this. But it's hard. If you need money, if you need projects, then you say yes to almost all kinds of things. But focus your business and also in the communication, what is it that differentiates your agency from the others? There's so many agencies out there, and a lot of them thinks they can do everything. They can't. Another thing, I mentioned this going from a small agency to a medium-sized agency, is that if you want to grow, then you need to find a way to keep your clients. Obviously, you need to balance your revenue mix, having some new clients coming in, but the better you are at keeping your clients, the more efficient and the more money and the more growth you will actually have. You can see just by Googling keeping clients, you will see that there are several analyses out there that actually states that the cost of getting a new client versus keeping an existing is the cost of times 7. So you actually spend 7 times more money getting a new client than you have to sell into an existing. The issue is that we see very new startups, very new clients chasing all of these new projects, and they don't have this mindset of how can we sell more to the existing. I have this project, I delivered it on to the next one. I do implementation. But you have to think about how to actually do these things and how you keep the clients here. And this is also what you call farming versus hunting. Farming is a lot more effective and you get much more out of that. Just a little, this is quite easy, but if you look at this chart over here, this is basically what it is, that if you have some of the very new ones, they tend to actually grow very slow. They don't keep a lot of their clients. They might have a little slightly rework from existing clients, but they don't grow very fast. And if you go up to the other side, the agencies that actually work a lot and don't have a lot of new clients coming in, but keep having work for existing clients. Their biggest challenge is actually to get more people in, good developers to do the work they get from the existing clients. And they don't use a lot of effort to get new work in. A thing in this growth when you keep clients is also when you grow agencies, then growing an agency, you tend to actually increase your costs. Your projects will become bigger. The time you spend on one project will be bigger. Your cost, your salaries to the developers will grow. And some of these clients that was good in your base of a small agency might not be able to follow you on your growth, and you will have to say goodbye to some of these clients when you grow your business. It's hard sometimes to say goodbye to some clients that used to be good, but they can't keep up with you all the time, and you must realize that it's okay to let them go to others. A thing that is not only common on agencies but in all businesses at all is that you need, as a business decision maker, as a business owner or a C-level decision maker, to get some sparring from some other people. Maybe it's not just the sparring, but this about that you keep focused on your reporting. So get a business board, get an advisory board. If you're not that very big, get an advisor, a mentor that you can actually communicate with, that you can set your long-term goals, that you can discuss some challenges you have. And maybe it's not just a person that can challenge you, but just the fact that you have bi-monthly meetings or quarterly meetings with a person that you have to report to makes it sharp to yourself. What is the status? What is the temperature in my business? And they are quite good at asking the right questions for you and keeping you on track so you don't zigzag in your strategy. Small business owners tend to do a zigzag in their strategy and don't have a goal long forward where you actually strive to that. But when opportunities pops up, they tend to run for those. Business board, mentors, whatever. Usually, when I talk about this, then I get the question of, well, I can't afford to have a board. It's expensive. But it's not. There is so many people out there that actually want to help, want to contribute, and being in a board, being an advisory for another company makes you shout yourself. I bet that if you look for a mentor, if you look for an advisory board, if you look for a business board, then there's a lot of people out there that will do it for free as well. I would recommend that you do some kind of pay because that actually obligates them to live up to their expectations and they won't pass the meetings and stuff. But hook up with a mentor or an advisory board or a business board. Yeah. When you are, especially when you are small, when you are the managing director and the only one managing a company, you tend to be able to hold on to the control of your company. If you think back at when I told you about the three different phases in an agency, then we saw the management team being more mature. There was people on different positions, and you can't, as a managing director or leading the company, you can't be good at it all. We usually see when there's a good developer, then you tend to put him in the lead developer position of a team, and you take him away from some of the things that he's actually good at. He might not be a good manager, just because he's a brilliant developer. So realize that the people you put in the different positions of your agency, it's okay that they are better than yourself. Actually, I would prefer much rather that the people around me that I'm supposed to spare with is better than me on their positions. And when you drive a business, don't be afraid to actually hire in a managing director because it might not be the things that you're good at. It might be the things that you see the things in your company, you see the right solutions. You might be a perfect architect or a perfect sales guy, but you might not be the best at being the financial CFO or something like that. Hire in good people on different positions. Then this, obviously I come from the commercial side. An important thing is to systemize your selling. Now this objective I could talk about for hours. It's quite important because if you don't systemize your selling, and systemizing your selling is not only incoming work, new clients, it's also to existing clients. There's two ways of systemize your selling. One is the workflow of one sale. That is how you get a new client, how you attract them, how the first contact is actually coming into the company to you actually start working on a sold project. That is one way. Another thing is the process of an existing client. How do you actually keep them in the loop? Make the yearly real for your clients and say, we have 12 months, we want to do some different things. We have, depending on sector and stuff like that, then you have different activities around the year with the client where you actually inspire them to do new work. If you have a hard time doing these things, then put your team together, take your project manager, take your designer, take your front-ender in and say, look at this client and give me 5 bullets what can make their website or their business better. Look at this and then go to the client and says, we got some good ideas that we can drive more business to your way. Create value to your existing clients, and these processes you have to systemize. And then when you systemize the one process of getting new work into your agency, you have to look at the bigger picture. How many projects do I have in different places? Because you don't want to be in this position where you'll always be in 2-3 months away from backlog. You want to be able to look ahead and say, well, we know there's we got 7 projects in the stage of 80% before they turn into actual projects. Then you don't have to use as much effort in this getting new business in, and you can really concentrate on doing good projects for the end clients. And that, again, will drive word of mouth, and you will get more incoming clients. Systemize your selling. In this systemization, there is, in the sales world, what we call the marketing and the sales funnels. And you have to sit down and look at what is the steps of your agency. Word of mouth is very important. You can't read word of mouth. Clients, well, you heard Niels talking about the Net Promoter Score. Word of mouth is so important. If you deliver good projects, that will drive other clients to you as well. But you still need, when you grow business, you get more people in, you also need to get more work in. So you need to be very sharp at how, in the sectors you work in with the clients and the skill sets that you work with, how do you get these new clients? Where are you going to fish? In what oceans? Is it trade show? Is it content marketing? Is it telemarketing? Do you do networking? Or what do you do? Have to get those leads in. And when you actually start the conversation, you have to have the process of the selling as well. So the marketing and the selling is quite important, no matter how big an agency you are. Even the small ones, you have to sit down and draw your funnels. So also, this is actually number 9. Remember, you can leave after this. This is number 9, and an important thing, and especially from us that come from the technical side. Look and feel is king. And that is because the end clients can't see underneath the engine. They don't always understand all of these things, but they can see the outside, and they can see the look and feel, and they can be inspired by what they see. They can identify themselves in. When I really realized that this is so important was I had a pitch, I think it's about 6-7 years ago, with a real estate company. They were selling a lot of houses, and they were also having a section of their company where they were renting out apartments and houses. And I'd done a lot of research, and I put together a pitch where we were integrating with their administration systems on the back end, and it was really smooth. It was actually so amazing that I was impressed of my own work. I went to the pitch. I had a lot of talks with them. I showed them, and they were impressed about this. I talked a lot about features. I talked a lot about saving time in their workflow out there. And I handed over my proposal for them, and my proposal looked pretty much something like this. I handed over the wall of text with a lot of things, a lot of descriptions in the different phases we would go through, with a lot of numbers in, and it was really documented. I had done my research right. I had been out there presenting it. They understood what was in it. And I was in touch with them over the next month. This was a project for, I think it was about 400 hours. I was also looking very hard at the cost because I wanted to win this. So I wanted to win it so bad because I saw an opportunity to get into a sector. Now, after a month, they told me that they chose another one. And they chose more of a kind of an advertisement agency that built some easy solutions. And I really didn't get why I lost this. So after some more time, they launched their site, and I looked it up, and it was quite nice. You could see the different possibilities of renting apartments, the different prospects in there. I was quite sure there were no integrations, and they had to do all the manual work because they told me. And then I looked at the source code of this, and it was a fucking, excuse me, WordPress template. It was a WordPress template that I looked up, and they bought it for $50. They sold the project for 100,000 American dollars. But I lost it because that advertisement agency actually came and they showed the look and feel that I didn't. Look and feel is king when you go to the clients. They don't understand all of the things behind. So be aware when you present things, when you explain things, that look and feel has to be king. Now, after this, I changed my proposal slightly and my presentation out there. And this is how my proposal started to look. I had my designers over the proposals, and we started presenting it a lot different. Now, on the proposal side, we actually when doing this change, I could measure that the effects, even though we were technical and came with all the backend, then we had an increase on our wins on about 20% by having this look and feel. Also, having the designers to actually create some prototypes up front of how we could think things in, how we could show them that we understood their business was quite important to that. So, ladies and gentlemen, look and feel is king. The last thing is while you are in business, while you actually are growing your business, have a lot of fun. It's important, no matter what position, even if you are a manager, a business owner, a developer, that you take time to reflect about the things. Take your time and don't get caught up in the daily operations all the time. Take time to sit back, step back, and have fun as well. Have fun with your colleagues, with your employees. Because if you don't have fun, then to be honest, yeah, you have to make a living. But combine the two. Ask yourself, what kind of business do I want to run? And this summarizes these 10 bullets that I think is important when you need to grow an agency. There could be a lot more, but these are important. And as I also told you that being a very small agency, these impacts a lot. When you grow and having a more mature agency, then you have some of these bullet point covers. This is not the 2 lines under. This is not a total result, but do it as an inspiration. Use it as an inspiration and a reflection. Yeah, I think that covers it. There's a couple of minutes for questions on this. I don't know if there's any. Otherwise, here's my contacts. If you have anything beyond that, I think I'm in the discussion later on as well. So thank you, and I wish you all a very good US Umbraco Festival. Thank you very much.